Beeline is an all-in-one facility management platform. So we leverage AI and IoT to automate building operations and occupant experience. And we create an operating system that brings all these different building technologies that are siloed, like visitor management, access control, evacuation, emergency management, work orders, smart controls, customer service for tenants and operators into one. This is a comprehensive solution for asset managers and operators of all building types without having to rip or replace the existing infrastructure. So there are a lot of buildings, they'll have all these different systems that are legacy systems, they're old, they're analog systems. We, move them into the cloud, we add AI, and we help to automate all of these buildings, which ultimately creates value for the operators and then also the tenants of those buildings.
Welcome back to Alexa's Input AI, and today I'm joined with Aaron Short, the founder and CEO of Beeline. Aaron has a background in urban planning and sustainability, and he started Beeline to bring AI and IoT into building operations. We'll talk about how smart buildings can change the way we live and work, the challenges of building in the space, and where things might be headed next. Aaron, thank you for joining me, and I'm happy to have you here.
Thanks, Alexa. I really appreciate you having me on. This is great.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. You've gone from urban planning to working in the green building industry to founding Beeline. So what led you to become a founder?
I think, I really got into kind of property technology because I could see how technology was disrupting kind of real estate and urban planning. It was, there were just problems that couldn't be solved with, the tools that existed. And so, I was working on a variety of different projects, and one of them was working with a PhD student at the U of T, and they were looking at how to use smartphones to collect data on how to design smart neighborhoods. So this was done with Waterfront Toronto out of U of T, and we were essentially mapping how people were going to be using, ideally, the Pan Am Village during the Pan Am Games, which were there, which led to the precursor to Sidewalk Labs on Waterfront Toronto. So this kind of was my first kind of foray into technology and data analytics applied at the neighborhood level. And from that project, I left that project and kind of looked at how we could apply something within other industries that I knew, so green building, using data and smartphones to connect with green building certification, building automation, and then larger goals of urban planning. So that's kind of how I got into it. I wouldn't say it was just a combination of a lot of the work that I was doing. And these projects just needed better data so they could get better design. And technology was the only way to kind of solve that problem.
What kind of data helped and what is a better design and green building and urban planning? Like what exactly does that mean?
Okay, so the problem that in terms of what the U of T was trying to do is um, how they would design transportation systems was designed on every census year, every 5 years. They would give people a survey, a one-day survey of how they move that day every 5 years. And that's how they would collect data to then design transportation systems,
Wow.
which, yeah. So obviously things have kind of gone since then. Now there are cameras on highways and parking meters and all these other data points. So, so this was kind of some of the data that these urban planners and transportation engineers were going to have to use. So also within green building, you have certifications and you're doing a lot of commissioning and looking at how you're saving the building owner money, energy savings of at least 25% in order to be a green building. So, there were a variety of different ways that data was being benchmarked. But a lot of these, the certification itself was very manual. Right. And so it was how do we tie and automate this green building certification by tying into existing building systems while also reaching larger goals of transportation demand management, making it easier to commute, healthy and active design, that type.
And what led you to go into urban planning?
Um, I was, just very, very interested in, designing cities. All right. Just architecture and design, and then how that influenced, placemaking and people.
When you were a kid, did you ever play those games where you design cities and stuff? Or like, I,
SimCity? Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. My favorite video game as a child. Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, totally. So I don't know, the things you develop, you play with Lego and then you do SimCity and then you just end up studying urban planning, I don't know if that's ever, journey, but that was definitely, things that sparked curiosity that made me kind of choose that career path.
Yeah, I love that. So, how do you think that your background in urban planning helped shape your approach when it came to, technology, especially in this like real estate and property tech space?
I think urban planning looks at the big picture. It kind of thinks outside of a building or a group of buildings owned by one person. It also, knows that political and market conditions are ephemeral. There's 4-year election cycles. And it tries to create a working solution that will benefit kind of the city and the region and the country as a whole long term rather than thinking kind of in the short term. So it acknowledges all these complex and unknown factors at play, but it encourages thinking strategically early on to create test scenarios that may or may not happen in the future. And so this is kind of a way to also translate very well into product development. When you're getting into agile development, you're creating things that testing what works and what doesn't, adding and taking away, right? But you're just doing it at a much larger scale with, very large factors.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Let's talk a little bit about being a founder. You transition to a founder. What was the hardest part about that, especially as you moved into this like real estate tech space?
I think one of the major transitions of being a founder is like, as an employee, your job is to be of service to your employer. But as a founder, your primary role in the company is to solve problems and to help the company grow, which involves creating strategy and goal setting and motivating employees. You have to do internal processes, design, HR, customer success, and ultimately create stakeholder value as quickly as possible. So that was definitely an adjustment. And as a founder, you have to be in the business while also working on the business, which makes you um, have to make sure that you have the right people in the right seats to achieve the goals that you're trying to do, and while also kind of creating a positive work environment that fosters collaboration. So these are all things that were adjustments when I just had one job and I had to do one thing and be of service to my boss. So it makes you really become much more dynamic, and you're always selling yourself and you're selling customers, and you have to be on for your employees and investors, and it's definitely a different game from just being an employee, because really ultimately you're the one responsible when things go well or don't go well or etc.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of responsibility and a lot of different factors that play into that. Was there anything that surprised you about the journey? Anything you didn't expect?
Yeah, there are definitely lots of surprises along the way. Different market conditions. Like we didn't predict the pandemic coming. These
Yeah.
once in a lifetime events, which completely disrupted uh, so many things in so many industries. But for us, it was kind of an opportunity. Our technology actually came in vogue, and we were able to actually grow with it. And then obviously pivoting post pandemic to adapt the solution to the needs of the new market conditions. So there's always things that you can't predict, but it's really how you pivot and respond. Um, you know,
Yeah, well said. So I want to transition now to talking about Beeline. Can you tell me a little bit more about it and what it is?
Yeah, so Beeline is an all-in-one facility management platform. So we leverage AI and IoT to automate building operations and occupant experience. And we create an operating system that brings all these different building technologies that are siloed, like visitor management, access control, evacuation, emergency management, work orders, smart controls, and then, you know, customer service for tenants and operators into one. So this is a solution that offers a comprehensive solution for asset managers and operators of all building types without having to rip or replace the existing infrastructure. So, there are a lot of buildings, they'll have all these different systems that are legacy systems, they're old, they're analog systems. We, move them into the cloud, we add AI, and we help to automate all of these buildings, which ultimately creates value for the operators and then also the tenants of those buildings.
Okay, so I was going to ask what value or what problem does it solve? It seems like it centralizes everything and makes it a lot easier. Is it what was the state of or what is the state of most buildings right now if they're not using this tool? Are they using a bunch of different tools? Is that kinda how it is?
Yeah, they'll be using, like for instance, Beeline is kind of your access. It's your phone, it turns your phone into your ability to get into the building,
Oh,
right? It
that's nice.
also is a visitor management system that also helps with visitors. And within the phone itself, it has a variety of technology. So an AI assistant, what's the Wi-Fi password, these type of questions. And it allows you to automate frequently asked questions while also providing a training tool for staff within the building as well. So you can upload all of your training documentations. We do this in any language, every language. So this allows you to kind of save time on training staff and other things. It also helps tenants to, if something's happening, there's a work order. It also streamlines work orders to help deal with that. And then also we have the sensors that we put throughout the building. I don't know if you can see these
Cool.
that allow us to get analytics on how the space is being used to integrate with heating and lighting controls. So if people forget to turn off lights or just heating controls, it all is done with AI based on occupancy and usage. So we can do cleaning forecasting and usage forecasting, which all changes based on the site, as well as the usage, as well as the seasons. So there's a variety of different factors at play. So when you have data that then is able to ingest all of this, a system like Beeline that is able to ingest all this data and then see patterns within it, you can apply AI to then optimize things so things become smarter and more adaptable. So yeah, so that's what we do at Beeline.
Wow, okay, yes. So just to recap about how AI integrates with it, it helps you to know about your energy usage, it's helps you to get guests in, it helps you to understand frequently asked questions like, "What's your Wi-Fi password?" And remind me, what else does it do with AI?
Yeah, customer service. So obviously, we're using AI agents to assist with frequently asked questions, also allowing operators to ask questions of a variety of different building systems that don't talk to one another. And then also is a resource for staff of the building. So you can upload training materials and such as well. The other thing that it does is access. So we mentioned digital access, Apple Wallet, but it also does biometric verification, so digital IDs. So it saves on security because people can't get into different areas that they don't have designations for, and it uses the facial recognition from the phone to pass the credential. So this allows you to save on having to have less security, and it also optimizes your property management. So you can have, one property manager doing the work of five property managers because it allows you to automate all of these different tasks. They only have to answer a question once and then it's there, set it and forget it. They only have to, upload training materials once and then it's there. And then if they do have questions from tenants or staff, they answer those once and then it's set to repeat until it needs to be updated. So there's just a variety of things that we use AI for, but also the occupancy and spatial analytics that we use for our sensors that we put throughout.
Is this usually residential buildings or is it also office buildings?
It's primarily facilities, commercial, industrial, retail, sports stadiums, medical facilities, manufacturing, those type of facilities.
I wish I had it in my home. It'd be so nice to be able to get in by your phone, and it would be a
Yeah.
lot safer, especially in New York.
Yeah, yeah. There are solutions that just do digital access. So if you
Mhm.
want, they're like August locks, you can put it on your existing lock. You don't have to rip it out, and then you can use your phone to get in. But if you're just looking for that feature,
Yeah.
but yeah, that is definitely something you could do for your home. We don't do a lot of residential. We do some within multifamily, but not a lot.
Yeah, when I was in China, it was interesting because, I believe everyone used their phone for almost everything to get into most of their buildings as well. But I always thought, like, what would happen if your phone died? But it seemed like a nice way because now you don't have to also carry a key around. So maybe we'll get to that residentially one day.
Yeah, and now, especially with advances, so Apple Wallet, it is actually designed specifically for when people have their phone dying. So it will actually pass the credential 5 hours after your phone dies. So, when you have capabilities like Apple Wallet or just Wallet in general, Google Wallet, it does have that capability. Yeah. So they're already kind of solving that problem.
That's a great point. I want to talk a little bit about the smart building tech space. Can you tell me a little bit more about that space? Is it crowded? Is there a lot of room for advancement? What is it like?
Well, you have kind of legacy systems, all right? So the Honeywell systems of the world. And a lot of these, they have a lot of existing customers and they have to use those, keep those systems operating. But, the cloud and AI are all things that companies like us have been able to kind of iterate on faster because we came into the game later. And so we can supplement and upgrade a lot of these old analog systems and move them into the cloud and add AI and do a lot of these things using hardware that can be communicate between different legacy of infrastructure as well as different integrations. So yeah, so there is always with just the advancements that we've seen in technology, in the last decade, like there's lots that can be done, and so really that's how it is. It is a space that's been around for a long time. HVAC systems have been around the 1930s, and these are systems that built based on the technology they had at the time, and then obviously within the modern era, we've seen major advances that have allowed us to make those things better.
And what would you say in this space is your differentiator? Would you say it's the ability compared to the others to iterate quickly and kind of move fast? Would you say it's in the space your differentiator is the AI component?
Yeah, we use AI throughout everything that we do, but we also, we are a SaaS platform, but we also allow people to integrate with a lot of different technologies that don't talk to one another. But we also have our own hardware that we can use to supplement and get very granular analytics to enhance building automation systems and lighting controls. So those are kind of our major differentiator is the granularity of the data and our automation component using hardware. So that is kind of what's most different because there are software that just do those things, but this is something that we can do to kind of take it very much to the next level.
That makes sense. And in the smart building tech space, in your opinion, generally, where do you think AI has the biggest impact?
I think if we're looking at, there's a variety of things here. I think it's really affecting, like generative AI is, changing the world, right? And it's specifically changing customer service, specifically within property management. A lot of property managers will, be overwhelmed. And so the fact that they can automate, have 24/7 um, customer service and frequently asked questions and training. This allows them to save a lot of time. And then I think also that is kind of the major thing that AI is being used to do. I think also security. You're seeing changes to not even having to have as many, if any, night personnel. So you have security cameras that are supplemented by biometric access control and smart control, so you know exactly who's in the building and who can be in the building using digital verification is another, just major thing that's happening within the building industry. And I think also energy, all right? So when we combined, AI with building automation systems and then live occupancy with weather and equipment data, that are continually relying on HVAC and, lighting. This creates dynamic set points that create smarter demand management. And so you see meaningful savings without like sacrificing comfort. And it also just learns from how the building is being used and makes it easier over time and just continually create savings for customers. So those are kind of maybe the three that I think AI is really kind of pushing within the smart building industry right now. Yeah, but AI is changing everything so fast,
Yeah.
especially because there's so many data points. And when you can use those patterns to then learn from those data points that have continually been in flux for
Hmm.
so long, it creates a ton of value for customers.
Yeah, and good AI is built on good data, and you point out also that one of your differentiators is that you have so much good data. So, have you been able to use that to enhance your product?
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right. So yeah, we're constantly iterating and looking at how it's being used and, getting customer feedback, but also data from users as well in order to kind of make it better. Also, we have predictive maintenance. So you can look at the data and see where things are kind of go wrong before it happens, and scheduling to solve problems before they come problems. So these are all kind of things that you can do now. Once you have a system in place to collect the data, it allows you to apply AI and then really get ahead of these problems before they start.
That's fascinating. In your opinion, at this intersection that you're in between, AI, property tech, climate tech, what is the most interesting thing that you're seeing right now?
That's a really good question. I think you're just seeing automation at all levels, right? Real estate for a long time has really shied away from technology, but now you're seeing that the value proposition is just it's it's so big, and there's been a lot of leakage, and now AI is really helping to kind of you know cut down on that leakage, whether it's security or customer service or energy or water, right? These are all things that when you apply technology really just collect better data, create better design, you know, create better workflows. So I think it's exciting to see that happening, and exciting to see people upgrading old buildings with old legacy infrastructure to buildings that are smarter, and not just relying on new buildings in the latest advancements within the technology.
You just said better design. What are some examples of better design?
Better design really looks at if you're looking at how a space is being used or not used, you could optimize it based on the needs of the people using it. So it enhances tenant experience. So say if you have, I don't know, 20% of people biking to work, right? And there are no bike racks, you can actually look at, hey, this is not just something that people are going to ask for. It's just something you can put in, or something like that, or electric charging vehicles, or how people are using a space. Are they using an office or not? Is that better to be used as a meeting room? Those type of things, right? Yeah, and then also, if you have um, good design and smart controls, if people forget to turn off lights, and you can tell when they leave a room that they are no longer there, and the sensors can just tell, then that's good design. It saves on operating costs, it saves energy costs, all these other things. So I think good design, um, it's really intuitive, it's really seamless. Yeah. So that's what I would kind of say to.
My dad would love this tool because he always yelled at me for not turning off the lights on when I was younger. Yeah, this is great for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as you are thinking about all these things, I'm curious how this has affected your personal life. When you're working on prop tech all the time, how has this affected your experience personally walking into buildings? Like when you walk into an office or a hotel, like do you notice these things?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. If you're an engineer or designer, you're obviously very intuitive with the things when you go into these spaces. And I think it's really encouraging when you walk into a space and it's taken steps to kind of create an elevated experience for their staff and tenants and visitors by integrating technologies that, make the building smarter and more intuitive. But yeah, as I mentioned, generally speaking, the real estate industry has been very slow to adopt new technologies in other industries. So when you experience a building in which the owner and operator has created this elevated user experience, I find it very impressive.
You mentioned that real estate industry tech is a bit slow to digitize. If you could give another founder advice, what would you say about, tackling industries that are a bit slow to digitize?
I think the best way to do that is really to meet your customer where you can create immediate utility for them. So with us, it was kind of access, right? So once you have a sticky solution, you can kind of easily expand on that with your customer, and you can continue to add features and get customer feedback, and then expand to offer new products, right? I think, a really good example of this is Uber, which started with Uber Black in 2009, and then it had that product market fit, and then it developed UberX in 2012, and then Uber Pool in 2014, and then Uber Eats in 2015, right? And so it's really easy to offer new products when you already have users on your platform. And so finding that utility and that product market fit initially is kind of the gateway into getting a more robust product that will have longevity and stickiness long term.
Yeah, I like that answer. Just get something out. Don't worry about it being perfect or a full product yet. Just get an MVP out.
Yeah, and just make sure that it creates real value, right? Are people going to use it twice a day or more than twice a day?
Focus on the feature that really provides the most value.
Yeah, yeah, and iterate from there.
So, as you've been a founder, what do you think has been the most important thing that's contributed to, keeping yourself resilient?
I think the big thing is, they always say this in any accelerator or any mentor, but you got to know that there are going to be setbacks and lessons learned because of things that you can't control, right? There's going to be shifting conditions, there's going to be incomplete data, and then building and knowing this is kind of part of the game, right? So, as Mike Tyson says, like, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So, having a mindset in which you view these not as setbacks, these setbacks kind of not as losses, but as learnings is kind of critical to success. And also just having a resilient and a growth mindset. Yeah. And I think just having that will put you in a place where you'll just have a better mindset and it'll be easier to collaborate with others.
Yeah, was there ever something that you failed at or quote unquote failed at, had some misstep that you feel created a valuable learning lesson for you as a founder?
I think the whole idea that you can move the fast and break things, it seems like a really fun idea, but I think you kind of test that out and then you realize, hey, that doesn't always work. It's better to create internal processes, knowledge databases, and accountability early on, because it just essentially helps you scale faster. And you get consistent data that you can bring on new people and grow with, um, and get better with, right? So I think, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't definitely not advise to move fast and break things. I think it may have been successful for some, but I don't think it's the winning formula long term for sure.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So, in that vein, if you could kind of look back and go back and give yourself advice when you were first starting Beeline, what do you think that you would tell yourself?
I think it's important to consistently reflect on the things that you can do better and take ownership for those things. But there are many things that are outside of your control due to unforeseen changes in the market or other setbacks. So the other thing I would say is, also, if things are not working on a strategy or technology, if the market's just not ready for it, I think sometimes it's interesting to just not try and brute force it and take a step back and assess what's happening and what needs to be improved. And is this the right time for this? Right. And then also, just on a personal thing, I think for any founder that's trying to build anything great, you kind of have to put yourself first and think of your body as an engine. Right. So, every morning, having a morning routine will pay infinite dividends to you, both personally and professionally.
What's your morning routine?
I like to wake up and do, physical fitness, whether it's a run or yoga or working out, depending on the season, and really kind of get the blood flowing in the morning. I find it really helps with cognitive performance and spiking cortisol early in the day. And then come back and then, do some reading or expressions of gratitude, looking at, hey, 10 things I'm grateful for today, and kind of preparing for the day and then getting in and allowing you to kind of set and then get everything prepared for the day. So you're not actually like chasing things
Yeah.
because, things always get crazier as the day goes on. But if you can get your morning routine in and you have that kind of stable component and foundation, it's just paid infinite dividends to me. And also, I find it helps with sleep in a lot of ways. Sleep is something that, as founders, we often lose a lot of just because of unforeseen things and setbacks. So it's a good way to kind of make sure that everything's kind of consistent with your body and allows you to, prevent burnout and all of those other things.
Great. That was a great answer. I agree. I think that when you wake up late in the day or right before you have something to do, it just your whole day is, it just starts you start running like you get out the door or you get out of the bed and then it just starts and having that time to prepare for the day makes a world of a difference.
Yeah, totally. And everybody has an hour to do like exercise, right? Especially if you just do it, one and done, you shower once, you're good for the day. I find it just it's so, so much better for everything in your life.
Yeah, you got to do it in the morning for sure. Well, that's all I have. Thank you, Aaron, for joining me on Alexa's Input AI and sharing this fascinating story about Beeline. So, for anyone listening, if you want to learn more about the company, you can visit www.b-line.io. And as always, thank you so much for listening and thanks for coming on.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks again, Alexa.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Alexa's Input. Make sure to subscribe so you know when the next episode comes out. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at Alexa's Input. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.